When was the last time you wrote something by hand? Not typed, not tapped on a screen, actually written, pen on paper. For many people, that question takes a moment to answer. Not because it is difficult, but because handwriting has quietly stepped out of everyday life. It did not disappear suddenly. There was no announcement, no resistance. It simply became unnecessary. There was a time when writing by hand was unavoidable. In school, every idea passed through a pen or pencil. At work, meetings left paper trails. At home, thoughts were planned, reflected on, and remembered through writing. Today, almost all of that has moved somewhere else. Notes live in phones. Thoughts are captured by keyboards. Memory is outsourced to the cloud. This shift is often described as progress, faster, cleaner, more efficient. And in many ways, it is. But something subtle changed along the way. Something that does not show up in productivity charts or speed metrics. Writing by hand is slower than thinking. And that slowness matters. When writing by hand, the mind cannot move as fast as it wants to. A pause is imposed. Choices must be made. Decisions are required about what deserves to exist on the page. Every sentence demands effort. Every word takes space. This friction quietly shapes how thoughts form. Typing does not demand that same restraint. Thoughts can be kept up with almost effortlessly. Ideas spill out before they are examined. Speed replaces selection. Volume replaces judgment. Neither is inherently wrong. They simply train the mind in different ways. When writing by hand, thinking becomes deliberate. Information is not just captured, it is processed while being created. The movement of the hand, the spacing of words, the physical act itself becomes part of cognition. Thought, motion, and attention operate together. This is why handwritten notes often feel different when revisited. They do not just recall what was said, they recall how the thinking unfolded in that moment. Typing, by contrast, is optimized for storage and retrieval. It is excellent for preserving information exactly as it appeared. But preservation is not the same as understanding. Understanding requires transformation. It requires slowing down enough to reshape ideas in one's own terms. As handwriting faded, that transformation step became optional and often skipped. This is not about nostalgia. It is not about romanticizing notebooks or resisting technology. It is about noticing how tools influence mental habits. Modern tools remove friction wherever possible, and friction is often framed as an enemy, something to eliminate. But not all friction is wasteful. Some friction creates depth. Some resistance gives the mind time to settle, to reflect, to connect ideas instead of rushing past them. When friction disappears entirely, thinking becomes faster, but also thinner. The concern is not that letters are no longer written or journals no longer kept. The deeper concern is that fewer moments exist where thinking is slowed down by design, where expression requires effort, where ideas must pass through the body before becoming external. Handwriting once enforced that pause naturally. Now, pauses must be chosen intentionally. What may be fading is not a skill, but a mode of thinking, one that values deliberation over speed, meaning over volume, and reflection over immediacy. This does not mean going backwards, it means remaining aware. Every tool shapes the mind that uses it. Some make thinking faster, some make it more efficient, and some quietly shape how deep thinking occurs. Handwriting was never just a method of recording thoughts, it was a way of forming them. And when a way of thinking disappears quietly, it is worth noticing before the memory of what it felt like to think that way fades as well. This is Kaizen Smarter, where science meets wonder, curiosity meets clarity, insight finds expression, and thought meets action. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kaizen Smarter.